Hello, and welcome to the Rollwise podcast. In this episode, we are going to be talking about a recent announcement from the Matt Colville DM Group thing production company, how they're putting out a from scratch high epic fantasy role playing game. Their Kickstarter just launched on December 7th. So, depending on when you watch this, the Kickstarter may still be going or may not. But we have dug into some of the details. We've given it a little bit of a smell test, one could say, and we're going to give our impressions and whether or not we're going to back it. And of course, since these are just opinions, obviously, we're not going to tell you to not to back something or anything like that or back it. We're hoping you'll go draw your own conclusions. But first things first, those of you that have been in the role playing community probably know Matt Colville and his channel, where Matt kind of leverages his experience in various parts of the industry as a game designer, a writer, and all of those kind of things to give advice, as well as they've recently, the MCDM company has been putting out different supplements for 5th edition to hopefully enhance your game. This includes things like Stronghold and Followers, Kingdoms of Warfare, Flee Immortals. I believe that was one of their biggest kind of like monster compendium editions and stuff like that, as well as they've created custom classes like the Illrigger, the Beastheart, and the Talent. I think that's kind of a comic book. Additionally, MCDM has put out kind of a monthly periodical called Arcadia. It's a very good, it's a digital magazine that you can pick up with great articles, adventures, and everything along the lines there. So speaking in that vein, I thought it was kind of interesting to see that they announced, a from scratch RPG was in the works a few months ago, and it kind of got me excited. What about you guys?
Well, I think it's been in production longer than a few months. Like, didn't they announce it when the OSR debacle happened? Like, didn't he say we're definitely doing this?
Well, I think he had mentioned. I could be wrong. If anybody wants to correct us, go ahead, jump in those comments. But
Please do.
I think he had mentioned previous to the OGL debacle that he was like he didn't understand why Wizards was letting other people take their lunch money, and I think that they had kind of thought about it, kind of in passing, but there wasn't really the pressing thing. And then I think the OGL debacle did force their hand, like it did a lot of the other companies in the space, to kind of create their own, like kind of go off on their own path and everything like that. And I thought they formally announced it just in the middle of the year. I don't recall it being that they formally announced beforehand, but maybe it was more of a wish list kind of item. I don't remember.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I do know at the beginning of his announcement video, he's like, maybe I've been preparing this since I was 16. So, whatever. I guess it's hard to tell, really. But
somewhere between now and a long time ago, this was announced.
Back in the long time ago when I fantasized about doing this, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I think it's good. Kind of along the lines of everything else, I think it's good when there's more. There's just more in the ecosystem for more games, more types of games. Especially ones that can fit that D&D itch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what about you, Jeff? Matt Colville game?
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Matt Colville as you guys are. You guys kind of helped, turn me on to him. And I've watched several videos on the YouTube channel, and I don't fully know how he is as a game designer because I haven't purchased any of the MCDM product. But as a GM, he seems very thoughtful and somebody that I would like to sit down at their table. There's a lot of people that are like, you get invited to a lot of games, and I get scared off because if the person running the game can't control the table at the very least, he seems like he brings a lot to it, and he puts a lot of thought, a lot of really solid thought. And I'm kind of excited to see what the game's all about. It looks like we got an 18-month runway to find out. Yeah. Game development doesn't happen overnight. And so, but there are people that have, almost 11,000 people. I'm on backerkit right now because that's where it's not on Kickstarter. It's on backerkit. Just shy of 11,000 people and just shy of $2 million. They're over 1.9 million now. It's like with 28 days left. there's a lot of people that seem very excited.
Oh, there is, and we'll talk about some of the backer levels later when we
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Holy
But
crap.
I'm guardedly, I'm excited. Something else that tackles high fantasy,
Mhm.
that gives you flavor without. I mean, everybody's taking the shot now, right? We heard it with Pathfinder, the legacy
Mhm.
stuff from 1970, the 50-year-old things that we don't need anymore, the vestigial, and that's great. I start fresh, do something
Yeah.
new, make it exciting. I'm eager to learn more. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to back it.
Mhm.
We've talked internally about what each of us, think so far. My guess is it at least two of us back it.
It's very likely.
I don't know which two yet, but my guess is at least two.
Two out of three people on the screen are going to
Yeah.
be spending money on this.
I don't know at what level. I'm not going to predict levels because I'm not getting into people's personal finances nor mine. But
Yeah. No, it's
but yeah, I think this is going to be a popular one around this channel.
yeah. So I think it's really interesting, and obviously, and I've watched a few like Kickstarter like promotional videos that they do to kind of like hype you up about why you should back this and all that kind of stuff. And it seems like Matt Colville is he has a really good way of kind of sharing his thoughts authentically, and even though it's scripted, like I feel he just has such a passion for it that he wants to get it right. But some of the things he said kind of right at the outset of it really resonated with me is that, I think a lot of the times today, and I think there's a lot of RPGs that are guilty of this, is that there's RPGs that have kind of come in and they've seen somebody else do the rules, do a set of mechanics and stuff like that. And they say, we're going to take those mechanics, we're going to put it into our game, and we're going to play the game, and so it kind of builds in this legacy of stuff. And sometimes that includes sacred cows, and that's what he says is that because it's starting the game from scratch, they're not worrying about anything that, like, in D&D, you have the things that fifth edition is told people that these are important, like armor class, like difficulty checks, like all these things, you would feel are going to be part of the game from here on out. But they don't have that kind of baggage. When they were designing this game, they said, let's make a game that's really fun, that's cinematic, and kind of follows the keywords of being a tactical, heroic, cinematic fantasy, which is like when you say tactical and cinematic in the same sentence, I kind of get a little bit nervous because tactical usually means that there's constraints, and cinematics means that it's usually far-fetched and wondrous.
Right.
So it kind of seems a little bit of opposite in terms of what it is. But needless to say, Jeff is absolutely right when he said that it's got 18 months to develop. They've really only been in development for 3 months. And so they're very, very much at the beginning of this project. And they have play tested what they've had. And people that have done the internal play testing, and this is based on what I understand, is that if you want to go to their Discord and you go to the MCDM Discord, you can actually get into their playtest channel, and you can be invited possibly to playtest the game if you're interested in pursuing that. Obviously, they didn't see our channel and just reach out to us naturally, for some reason. I don't know why, but the idea is that it since it's this tactical, heroic, cinematic fantasy, they're doing stuff very differently than I even expected. The first thing is that they're doing a 2d6 mechanics plus a stat, which doesn't seem very new or interesting or anything like that. But everything is about making progress and finding balance in that. And so that when you roll your dice, and Brent, you're going to love this, you don't actually roll to hit. You automatically hit in this game. And so
I'm in.
And so basically and you'll have to see how it kind of works. But basically what seems to happen is that when you roll your dice to do damage, that's basically what you're doing. And your ability to, do damage, resist damage, and all those kind of things determines how epic this battle becomes. And so when they explain that you're starting at level 1, is you're effectively starting at that like 3rd level D&D class where you're actually kind of established at this point. You're not, and they said you're not just a guy who was like one day, sheafing corn or whatever, and then all of a sudden, or sheafing wheat, and then all of a sudden you're like, you see a longsword on the ground and you go, I'm going to go be an adventurer. And you have no freaking clue on how to use the longsword. You don't know how to hit anything. And a goblin runs you through, almost ending your adventuring career as soon as it began, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
I
so,
like that they call out that you start out as heroes.
Mhm.
You're already a
Mhm.
hero, even at level 1.
I think that's a big thing.
I do too. It makes me hopeful for the feel of the game. Like, I don't expect to crush everything, but I also don't expect to feel like, like you said, I was a longshoreman yesterday, and today I'm, on an adventure to save a town.
yeah.
It's just taking out that feeling of feeling inadequate that happens sometimes in those first
Yes.
three.
Exactly. And I think that that's always a tricky one because they're like, well, what's your backstory? And you're like, I don't have one. I literally have level 1. Yesterday I was at a tavern bemoaning my inability to get a girl. And today I'm picking up a sword and finding my fortune as a, mercenary. You know what I'm saying? Like there's
Or the person goes the other way and has this complex backstory, and it's like, then I got hit in the head with a rock and I don't remember any of it or something, because you're definitely not, the Crystal and Druids, the backstory that you wrote, murderer of all. Like you're not that badass at level 1. Like, I know you want to think so, but that's not
Yeah.
what
You're not.
happened.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, but it is kind of fun to be able to say, like, well, I am a hero of sorts to begin with, and I don't have to worry about establishing the fact that I'm a hero by surviving my hero trials to get to from, pre-hero to hero. And as you've mentioned in the past, Brett, getting to that 3rd level, that's when you actually start to feel like you're playing the game, like as the
Mhm.
character class in many cases. Well, the one thing they did manage is this is a very class-based game. And they had planned on having kind of 6 classes right out of the gate. And each class has a resource to manage. And so how they use their resource determines how they interact with the things about them. So like you will never just swing a sword in this. Like that's just not a thing that and I don't know. He's oversimplifying it, but you don't just go, I swing my sword. Usually you're
Mhm.
doing something much more interesting, much more dynamic, and much like I knock him into,
Heroic.
I hit the goblin into the other 10 goblins like he's a bowling ball and they're bowling pins. Oh, well, that sounds fun. Roll your dice. And so it kind of mentioned it like, and depending on the type of class that it is, each class has a different resource type and how the resource interacts. So like the Fury, which is kind of the barbarian analog, their resource is rage. And the more rage you build, the more you actually get like to do things. But at the same time, you also kind of like have the common barbarian problem is that, you don't know how injured you are, or you, you kind of lose your mind. So there's, it's a good thing for them to build up and maintain rage, but it's also a bad thing because of the potential negative consequences. And so there's kind of a balancing act in there. I think they had said they had 6. I didn't get all 6 of them, but I had like Tactician, which is kind of their melee warrior, a Shadow, which is kind of their assassin glass cannon. They had the Fury. I think they had an Illrigger, which is their port they're bringing from 5th edition. And then they had the Talent, which is kind of their psionic class. Maybe they had a Conduit, which is kind of their priestly class.
So no wizard class yet?
I don't remember.
Psionic class and a psionic class and no wizard class
There's
would be
got to
a
be a wizard
very interesting decision.
There's got to be a wizard class in there. There's got to be a pew pew.
Well, they could just, I mean, that would be your psionic though. Your psionicist would be your pew pew class.
Yeah, maybe.
Which would be an interesting choice as to I would be interested in that. That sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, they're like I said, they're thinking about this in a very different way, and I think they said they wanted to put a minimum of 6 classes in the game, and the 6 classes were like kind of the core concept, and then of course, making if they have more, they have to make sure how they fit and they balance with everything else and all that kind of stuff. Something else I thought was interesting is that they only designed up to 10th level. That's kind of their goal. They haven't implemented any of it or anything like that, but they only want to go up to 10th level, which is kind of putting you in that demigod plane. Because, and this is what Matt said, is he didn't want to create dead levels.
And I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like
with 10, it's going to be interesting to see if there's some other progression. Like if you're playing a heroic campaign, like if you feel like you're getting better, like if I'm just trying to, like, if you played for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I don't know, and only went up 10 levels. I mean, is that enough? We're speculating. We don't know what's included in the rules that haven't been written yet.
I mean, I think 10 levels is fine. I mean, realistically, I don't think very many people play D&D past 10th level. And I think just spreading out the levels, the XP gains is probably enough, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. Like I said, we don't really know about the game yet fully, but I think that could be really interesting.
Well, and especially if the progression is like you said, you're a hero that moves into that kind of like almost semi-legendary.
Sure.
You kind of slot yourself into that legendary position. I mean, that kind of reminds you almost of the old school classes a little bit too, where I feel like the original D&D did a little bit of a better job kind of explaining like what was the purpose of getting really high level. Like as a warrior, you established basically a kingdom. You had followers, you built a castle and everything like that, and you kind of like sat on a throne. You didn't have to, obviously, but as a druid, you become the keeper of the grove. They had kind of these aspects that were above and beyond, like, oh, I'm just a simple adventurer. You actually get into like, well, how do I influence the world around me and stuff.
Well, and you were like, that was designed into the class. Like getting henchmen as a warrior was like something that was going to happen.
Like people would just follow you because your exploits obviously would be worthy of people to become fans of your.
You've got all these things, and then no DMs would let you play with them.
Man, running henchmen was hard. Okay.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm saying that it was a feature of the game that was regularly ignored by the people running the game.
You are correct, though. That is true.
You know what? I may be guilty of it too, because and the worst part about it is I think the earlier versions of D&D, that was like more of like an 8th level thing. I think it came on relatively quickly that you started getting those.
Oh no, I think it's 6th level. I think it's 6th level in original, in AD&D at least. I think you started getting henchmen as a warrior.
Like it wasn't late, but I thought once you got a little later, it got the stronghold or whatever.
Yeah, and if you got to like 15 or 16 or something, you had a lot. Like they could take care of minor battles for you.
All right, like, and see, that's one of the funny things about new games, that why there seems to be a weird power gap is because like the class was originally designed to do stuff, like it was designed to be more than that. And so when it started being just how hard I hit things, that's when it started to be a problem. It's like, oh, you don't have any henchmen anymore. So
yeah. Well, and I thought that was kind of some interesting things that they're bringing back to like how they do this, because they're trying to make sure that there's no slog, no wasted turns, and all of that kind of stuff. So like with what they did goes out of their way to mention is that the game is about, you can do an epic game exploring dungeons, but it's not about dungeon crawling. You don't track the torches or rations or running out of light or anything like that. It's not really designed for a hex crawl or something in that vein, but it seems like it's more focused on epic heroes finding monsters and tyranny and all that kind of stuff. And in some ways that's kind of interesting, because the next section that they bring up is that outside of that, they actually have negotiation as one of the sections that they talk about. And he actually mentions that they bring together stats like patience and interest. And then each NPC is designed with a pitfall and a motivation. And so by kind of combining these, you may encounter situations that you resolve through diplomacy in a more dynamic way that really doesn't seem to fit with D&D, at least as it's written, and how you kind of address NPCs. Because his example is maybe there is an evil lich, but he's taken an interest in you, so your interest level is high. And as long as you avoid the pitfalls, you may be able to get him to do something for you against another person that you're, kind of at war with or trying to maneuver against. Whereas if their interest level goes to 0, they are no longer interested in you, and the negotiation is effectively broken down.
Right.
And so I thought that was kind of a novel way to think about NPC interactions, because I feel like either the games, when they focus on social mechanics, get like so deep into the weeds with the social mechanics that it just becomes confusing and less role play, or they're so light, like 5th edition is just like, oh, it's a social situation. Or even just Fallout has a speech skill. Anything related to speech goes into speech.
Like that stuff isn't like, that's one of the things about D&D that's interesting is that it doesn't really have that space for diplomacy as an actual option.
It's like, not I mean, it's a role playing option. You can always choose to role play it, but mechanically it can be hard to have a meaningful mechanical component.
Right. And that's why it's nice sometimes when that is in there, because I always say that there's some people who aren't as experienced might make a character that's really good at diplomacy, but like the person has a hard time with it, and they're nerfing themselves unintentionally by making a character who's mechanically good at something.
You'll be amazing in certain situations that come up once in for never, right?
Right.
And the rest of the time when the party's doing other things, you're like almost worthless.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's always kind of the tricky part about all that. So I've always wanted to find a game that had mechanics that made sense for negotiation and diplomacy. I haven't found one that I've said, oh, this is my go-to game when I want to have that type of gameplay. I mean, I've had fun games with that element included, but I can't say there's been any games because of the mechanic they've enhanced the gameplay. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it falls more on just the fact that the players ran with it well.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like even in the game we ran for Monsters of the Week, that was, I don't think the mechanics necessarily made the interactions fun. I think you guys made the interactions fun with the different NPCs and stuff like that.
But Monster of the Week's kind of written that way. Like there isn't Monster of the Week encourages the players to just talk, like just role play stuff. Whereas like I'm always going to argue that D&D kind of suggests that you hit them with a hammer.
You see a police officer standing outside where there's a down body. I strike her with my blackjack.
No officer, it wasn't me. Roll diplomacy. I rolled a 1. Well, he doesn't believe you. I hit him with my hammer.
D&D scenario. I feel like we've definitely been really reductive in D&D at this moment, but
I mean that's kind of what happens sometimes, especially if it's just that diplomacy roll, because you're only going to get so much out of it, and there's not a whole lot of reason to put points in it unless that's all your character does. And if that's all your character does, why did they kill somebody in an alleyway? Or how?
It's true. It's true. So I think that in terms of just the game and everything like that, I feel like if you've looked at Matt Colville's other products, I feel like they're pretty good. I have like the first 10 issues of Arcadia. I think maybe the first 12. I don't remember the exact number, but it was a fun monthly zine to get. Good production value, good art, good tips, tricks, and all of those kind of things. And it really feels like, his old school, like the experiences for the player kind of mindset. I feel like he's authentically trying to make a better experience and a better game for the people that play it. It doesn't feel like he's trying to get out there and make just gobs and gobs of cash. Although, his Kickstarter or backerkit or whatever you want to call it is so that they don't lose gobs and gobs of cash. It's designed in such a way.
Well, yeah, they're pre-financing production.
Yeah, which I find kind of scary is that they are like the fact that it doesn't have a name really yet is kind of scary to me. But what I was going to say about Matt Colville is one of the things I do believe. One, he has quite a bit of experience in the industry. And he has made other products that have sold, not just for himself, but for other companies. Like he did some Dune stuff for, it's not the current Dune product, but it's an older Dune product that I think he helped produce. And so I think his experience with that gives me more confidence in A, the backer kit, and B, the product. I think the product will be good. And I think it's right. I think I think you hit the nail on the head. He is 100% hyper passionate about the project, and he's a good mouthpiece for that. And as long as he's heavily involved, I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah,
it's going to be, and the way he describes things, like his cinematic ideas for combat and pacing with monsters versus heroes, I think that stuff is going to be good in a new game. Because instead of house ruling a game like 5th edition, now he has carte blanche to make that happen more smoothly in his game.
Yeah. No, I honestly, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what he puts together. I mean, as I was kind of thinking about it, I mean, heroes fighting monsters. I'd have to. I'm curious if that's like it, because I mean, because that's like a very D&D thing to say, like heroes fighting monsters, and since like dungeon crawling and exploring aren't really the main emphasis of it,
monsters and tyranny, they said.
Yeah, monsters and tyranny. So it'll be interesting to see how effectively they pull off the core concept of the game, and if that can be used for any game. Like, how well do you bring your stories to this system, and how well do they play it? But I don't want to like prejudge how this is all going to go. I feel like, I feel like at least, we don't, he's kind of got a fresh slate with me, and or at least if anything, he's got a positive leaning, because I do like some of his other products. Flea Mortals was really interesting in terms of just like a kind of an updated monster manual for 5th edition. Even though we haven't played 5th edition, having that kind of in my back pocket is kind of an interesting thing.
And they've delivered on several projects. I think the last few projects they've launched on backerkit first.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what that means personally, but
well, they have instead of just going through the regular distribution channels, like producing the book, laying out all the cash up front, the traditional publishing method, it's easier for me to back companies that have delivered product after making promises, because you're giving them cash and getting nothing.
Yeah.
Except a chance to wait for, and this is the one caveat on this, is they're saying middle of 2024, so that's
middle of 2025
or 2025. That's 18 months that they're admitting to. That could be 24 or 36 months in reality. I'm not saying they're going to slow roll it, but it could be. I don't know what kind of problems they're going to run into.
One thing that is good is it is good that they have backed other things. Like they have other things that they've rolled out in production. I don't know how close they were to their assessments.
Yeah, I'm not trying to slander them or
no.
What I'm things. I'm just saying we've all backed shit stuff that took forever to get.
Well, yeah. What I'm saying is I backed a role playing game. People have heard me talk about it. The Orpheus Protocol that I backed, and it was by somebody who hadn't ever produced a game, and there was just all of these unforeseen things that he didn't know could happened. I mean, one of them was COVID, so I give him that year. Maybe 2, maybe. But I didn't get the book. It took almost 4 years for me to get a physical copy of the book. That's even if I give him COVID in 2021, that's still 2 years in total to get a book. Which, because of unforeseen problems, at least knowing that they've produced books before, they know of the pitfalls that could happen.
Yeah.
So
you said it much more elegantly than I did. Thank you.
Yeah. So just so you guys know,
since one book took 2 years to get, or 4 years to get, I've thought about this pretty frequently. Actually,
when am I getting my book?
Why did they back that?
So I think
it was like Christmas, though. I will say that.
Well, because you almost had time to forget it and then have it come back.
Exactly. It was like, oh, new book.
When did this come out? I don't even know. I didn't even know these guys knew my name. No. So I guess in terms of like what you're backing with this, I do find that Matt Colville definitely, I think he protects himself quite a bit with their, kind of like how they put it out here. It's not bad or anything like that, but you can get PDFs either at the $40 or $65 level. You can get the Heroes hardcover at $70. Plus it gives you, I think it gives you the PDF with that. And then you get the limited edition hardcover at $125. And then you get the Heroes and Monsters at $135. and then you get Monsters and Heroes and Monsters limited edition hardcover at $250. And then they had a higher tier Ajax edition, which was kind of like the ultimate collector's edition for this, which is already sold out. Everyone's already taken the 1,000 units available potentially for that product. But I think if I'm going to back it, I'm probably going to get the physical stuff, because it looks like some of the things that they had mentioned is, first of all, they will get a playtest packet out to people that are backers in Q2 of 2024. So there may be an opportunity to play this before the 2025 time. I mean, admittedly early, and it may change before the next thing comes out. But you'll have a pretty good idea of how it plays. And they say they intend to publish the game under an open license, probably something like the Shadow Dark license, because they want to make, give people to want to make, share, and publish on work using that rules and everything like that, something to work with. But I don't know. I mean, I think the idea that, this is going to be possibly playable sometime next year could be a fun thing. And I think we should, I'm going to mark my calendar to play it. And I think we should play it on stream when it becomes available and we have permission to play it.
Yeah. We'll definitely try it.
Yeah.
Oh no, if I don't back this, I still want to play it. You know what I mean? Like I'm leaning. I think I'll probably back it. I don't know. Don't.
I still haven't decided yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, I have some time, and I have some other things going on in my life where I've got to make some decisions. So
it's true. It's true.
We all do.
That was one thing I mentioned. I did mention. I talked a bit about this, Jeff. I think it's a stupid time. I mean, well, apparently not. I thought it was a dumb time to put this up as a backer kit, because Christmas is a time people have money earmarked for other things. The holiday season, presents and stuff, and to put money down on something that you're not going to get for up to 18 months or 2 years, that's kind of a weird thing. But I guess I was wrong. There's definitely people that decided that it was worth giving one less gift this year, or 30.
They got it, or they're pre-spending a lot of Christmas cash,
or they gave themselves one extra gift this year.
Yes.
One big extra gift this year.
Yeah. No, I mean,
1,000 folks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was 1,000 folks that actually splurged and got the Ajax edition, which definitely looked cool. I didn't have any illusions that I would be purchasing it, but unless one of our followers,
500 is a big investment for something that I've never played. I'm going to be honest. I believe that the special edition, the limited editions, are going to look great. I probably wouldn't back at that level either, personally. But I love books. I love special edition books, and it's always tempting. But then you're like, wow, that's $250. That's
and one thing is I would say about the miniature that for me that's weird is they don't have a 3D sculpt of the mini even up. So if I was gonna buy it and I was interested in the mini, I'd want to see what the render looks like before. I'm sure it's not gonna be garbage, but as somebody who has gotten garbage minis before, it's a little nerve-wracking, at least not seeing the 3D render of this is what it's gonna look like, sort of thing.
Well, and I don't know. They say the design was by a company called Cook and Becker. I don't know who Cook and Becker is, but I kind of feel like
I'm sure there's someone. I don't know if there's someone I know, but I'm sure there's somebody knows.
Looks like they're a video game company.
Yeah, I don't know what they do.
I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful, but miniatures are a weird thing.
No, they are.
Looks like they have a lot of art that they put out there. So I wonder if maybe they just did the digital component to the design, and then they're going to have somebody else.
Yeah, they probably did the design, and then they'll have somebody 3D print it, which it could be really cool, or it could be not. I've gotten bad miniatures before, as somebody who's collected miniature, who has dabbled in miniatures. I've gotten some that aren't good.
That's fair. So, with that, I think, honestly, this is cautiously optimistic. I think that, in terms of games, it's kind of nice that we're having kind of a renaissance and a lot of people sticking their hat in the ring. And I really hope that, even though we may not have the greatest reach, maybe if people are on the fence and they see the stuff that we do, maybe they'll also be picking up some of these games. They don't have to pick up all of them. Obviously, we're going to be the ones that are torturing ourselves with adding more books to the shelf. But maybe they can pick their next game from here and get inspired, have some fun, because I think, if you can play the games and you can join the community, it's a great community, a lot of good things. And I think like Matt Colville and what they do is kind of like it just shows you how good it can be. Because I agree with you, Jeff. If I could get at one of their tables, that'd be fun. It seems like he'd just be a really fun game master to have running the table, just really excited about everything, super descriptions and all that. Crazy story that you're following. I don't know, whatever. So, you guys have any other comments you wanted to make before?
No, it's an exciting time. It's nice to see some new, product
and
coming into this space.
Yeah, and new in the D&D space too. Like you see a lot of games that aren't D&D. You see a lot of those Kickstarters go up for fantasy games, or not fantasy games, like sci-fi games, post-apocalyptic games, that sort of thing. You don't see until recently. You haven't seen a lot of people being like, "Nah, we're gonna make a competitor to potentially a competitor to D&D." Especially this, because one of the things that I think about what you said earlier about what he said is it's clearly not an OSR game. Like he's made the stance that it is not an old school Renaissance game, which is a big statement because a lot of the games that are coming out now are old school Renaissance games. They're not trad fantasy role playing games. So like that's a big thing. It's a big powerful statement. And I think that's what he means when he says it's not about dungeon crawling. It's about
it's about epic adventures.
Yeah,
it's about an epic fantasy,
which is more what D&D is about now than dungeons, anyways. There aren't very many Dungeons and Dragons games anymore where you actually go in a dungeon.
Yeah, everything's a dungeon. The wilderness is a dungeon. I believe that's what I read somewhere.
But one thing probably true.
The one thing I did have to say that I also find is interesting, and I think this is my final comment, you kind of sparked it, is that everyone knows that Wizards of the Coast is like the big gajillionaire business in the brand, in the space and everything like that. So they can throw a lot more money at something to develop a product. And I don't get me wrong, there are a lot of indie developers that have put together amazing products and everything like that. But it's weird to see, I'm really curious to see what these guys put together. I'm a little bit gun shy after the whole Candle Obscura thing, because Candle Obscura was put together by another big group in the space, but I wouldn't say it was groundbreaking. It borrowed a lot from a lot of other games, had an interesting enough setting, but it didn't really motivate me to buy the product. I thought about it, as we all know, but I didn't ultimately buy it. But it feels like this is what a company that has the resources and the ability to commit a large amount of capital to a project and get it right can do. And I feel like they're going to really try to nail it down and get it as right as they can based on their vision. I'm so curious what that looks like for a role-playing game.
I feel like the difference is, and I'm not saying, okay, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound bad, and it's not that I don't think Matt Colville and company love D&D, but I think they love acting first. I think they love playing games live on stream first. And I think Matt Colville loves running role-playing games and doing.
Do you mean Matt Colville or Matt Mercer?
Sorry, Matt Mercer. Sorry.
Okay.
Both Matts. Yes. I think Matt Mercer loves acting and voice acting, and their group loves acting and voice acting. And I think that's their focus, is making a game that you can be performative with. Whereas I think Matt Colville, to correct myself earlier, loves tabletop role-playing games. And I think his focus is to make a game for tabletop role players to play and have fun. And I think that's the feeling that you're getting that is different. Is Daggerheart was made to be more performative. It's going to be easy. Rolls are going to be different. It's going to be easy to roll and run on a stream. Whereas he, once again, it's probably going to be easier to play still, but also really captures that joy that of just the media of itself, not media for another purpose, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. And what I want to correct here is I don't think that there haven't been other big gaming studios that have been putting stuff out. Like Fantasy Flight Games is by no means a slouch or anything like that. And same thing for a lot of those other companies like Modifius and stuff like that. They still put out amazing games and they're putting out cool stuff. I just think that what I'm really interested about this, just to clarify, is the fact that we have these big creators in the D&D world that come with big ideas and they have the capital to kind of implement it. Because I do feel like there's a lot of times D&D kind of is the brain suck and all the people, everybody kind of jumped into that silo because that's where all the money was to be made. And so now we're getting some of those creative minds out of that silo. And it's curious to see what they do because, Free League is an amazing company that puts out amazing games. These other companies put out amazing games.
They do, but they don't put out a D&D style game.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They put out different styles of games.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this interesting is to see the D&D style of games. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
No, I interrupted you, sir. I was just going to say is what I'm hoping is that with Pathfinder rewriting their game from the ground up to not be Dungeons and Dragons, with MCDM delivering a Dungeons and Dragons direct competitive product, that this is the leading edge of the wave that started with the OGL debacle. That there's going to be more. These might be two of the biggest ones, right? Mm-hmm. But that more people are going to take some time to create something new rather than. And I'm just this sounds dismissive, and it shouldn't, because creating content to work with 5th edition is not a bad thing. All right. There's been a lot of third-party stuff that I've loved, for the last few editions of D&D. Mm-hmm. So I'm not knocking them, but it would be nice to see some people creating some things on their own, taking that chance, knowing that maybe somewhere down the road, Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast is going to try to do something similar and take away your ability to earn money. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping this is a big wave of new stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah. And one of the things that I hope is someday that we're going to see on some other show, like a Stranger Things type show or something like that. We're going to hear about other games like Shadowrun's going to get mentioned, or Pathfinder or something like that. Like, it's not just going to be, hey, Shadowrun was popular in the 80s.
Whoa. Hold your horses there, Brent. You're like, Shadowrun? That shit was sick.
One of the I think Call of Cthulhu has come up on other like TV shows and stuff, but like to hear other games in media that aren't Dungeons and Dragons, like that's what I hope for, because I would like it to not be the only game that people know about, I guess.
But, yeah, it's just the easy way out. Oh, they're playing a role-playing game. Haven't played Dungeons and Dragons.
Everybody knows what that is. Yeah.
So okay, well, that's it. I think that should wrap up this episode. Final verdict: back it if you want. Don't back it if you don't want. I'm sure it's going to be on BackerKit for the foreseeable future, so pick it up anytime.
28 days to be
28 days. It is a limited time.
Don't they do like a BackerKit, but then doesn't it continue to be able to be pledged, and you kind of, you miss out on the initial BackerKit prices.
I don't know how this one's going to go. Some do,
I don't
some
know
don't.
I don't know if BackerKit does that.
Oh. Well,
Late
I thought
pledges?
it was.
I don't know if BackerKit does that. Kickstarter does, but I don't know if BackerKit does, because BackerKit just recently started doing this.
Okay, well, never mind. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm talking on my bum. You have 28 days at least, maybe more, maybe less. I don't know if they could.
You have until approximately the end of December of 2023, depending on when you're watching this,
to get in on the BackerKit, then there will probably be like a store like normal products where you can go and buy the book.
Probably, yeah. Whatever. So if you want to do it, let us know your intentions, why you are excited about this game in the comments, and of course, if you're interested in watching us play games, remember we're available most Mondays. We do a live stream at 8:30 p.m. Pacific. So if we're not testing a game you want us to test and play through it, let us know. Be like, hey, I don't know if I should pick up this game. Could you play it for us and see if you like it? And we can give you our good old honest attempt. So also catch us on Mondays, because we would like you to hang out with us and tell us how much we suck at games.
Well, not necessarily that, but
Yeah.
Hang out with us. Give us constructive feedback. Let's say that.
Oh, yes. Give us constructive feedback on how we can
Yeah.
be better, because at the end of the day, we're still amateurs.
Correct us on our Planet of the Apes references.
Is that what's going to happen in Fallout, or we're just going to have a whole bunch of?
Well, no, that did happen in one of the comments, and I appreciated it very much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyways, Jeff, I think you're up.
Yeah, don't limit your interactions with Rollwise to just the comments on our YouTube videos. You can hunt us down and find us on Facebook, Threads, Twitter, and YouTube by looking for us at Rollwise, or you can reach us by email, rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
And we've done a lot to make the hunt easy, so please feel free to look. It's a lot easier to find than Dungeons and Dragons Adventure Channel. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining us. As always, roll well, roll wise, and be safe out there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
See
you
guys.